Okay. Actually, stop that. Whoever is recording, we need to hold on. We need to stop this. Me. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the largest, fastest growing, and the most active globally known community. This is an organizational design and product centric group of interest called Large Scale Scrum for large products, multi-site, um, large products. This is what we are. Today we have a special speaker whom I would like to introduce. His name is Jordan. Full name is Jordan Bergtraum. And Jordan is the a very experienced product leader with 20 plus years of business to business enterprise SaaS experience. He's got 10 years in team leadership, um, uh, leadership uh, position and responsibilities, and has experience owning product strategy and roadmap, and has worked with high-end clients, discovering data, having done a lot of industry research, and have been working with complex enterprise products across the world. Jordan believes that team management is about driving the product team's development, accentuating growth, and introducing best practices through mentorship and training. Jordan believes that the best insights come from the advisory boards and actually knowing who your competitors are. Currently, Jordan is the product manager, consultant, and head of product. Prior to this, he was the head of product at Utilize Core and Equip ID, that's the name of the company, which were SaaS companies in the facility space. Jordan holds an MBA and MS, master's degree, and Master of Science with honors from the Boston University, and also bachelor's in biology from the Union College. So that's a nice combination. So without any further ado, Jordan, I would like to offer um, the speaker's podium to you. Please take it away, everyone. Please keep your mics off, cameras on, and hold your questions until the end when Jordan will allow you to engage. Thank you. Jordan, please.
Thank you very much, Gene. First off, I want to say how much I appreciate you hosting this and including me in your speaker series. I love doing these things, so every opportunity I get, I try to take. So thank you. So today, I'm going to talk about something that, I'll be honest, I haven't spoken about much in the past. Sort of new topic for me, and I have done plenty of talks in the past on various topics that I think we're all now familiar with, and I was looking to do something new and something that I think probably is not being discussed quite often, but should be. And you see it in the title. It's all about the product manager title and is it still telling us anything or enough about what the job will be? So I'm going to blast through this slide because Gene did a great job of covering my background. 20 years in B2B product management. I've been a manager for 10 of those years. Industry is all over the place. I've been in everything from education, pharma, legal, and most recently and currently facilities management has been a common one for me. And twice I've had the pleasure, if not challenge, of actually introducing mature product management to an organization. And as Gene mentioned, classic roles in B2B SaaS, product management, market research, product marketing, roadmaps, prioritization, and ultimately, delivery. So what to expect? I structure most of my talks pretty simply where I introduce a problem. And if you're going to talk about a problem, well, you better have a solution to the problem. And I will also end with a little bit of good news so we don't all walk away fully depressed by this topic. So I do want to start just a little bit of background on me that is certainly relevant and adds, you know, why I have the perspective I have. So my origin story is my first product related role was working on internal software tools as a business. This was the job for a company that was really not a software company at all. They were a mostly a services and products company together. But like many companies, they had challenges in their business that could be assisted with software. My role was to work with various internal departments that existed within that company to gather their software, primarily software, sometimes a little bit of hardware, but primarily software needs, and translate that into something that was consumable by the technology team, which was primarily software engineers and the roles that were wrapped around a internal software engineering function. So that's job one. And then I fairly quickly in my very next job transitioned into what I would call, a SaaS product manager. And the job title there was product manager. And that was an interesting transition for me because that second job introduced me to some new challenges that I wasn't used to in my first job, such as dealing with, customers, actual paying customers, but multiple paying customers, which resulted in the need to worry about prioritizing all these things that they were asking for that I hadn't had to deal with before, and also getting into other things like pricing and product bundling and win-loss analysis that was all new. And that was an interesting transition for me. And some of us and people on this call may have made similar transitions in their career, very possible. Wouldn't surprise me. So from there, I stayed in the B2B enterprise SaaS world from the rest of my career. So, but that first role to second role definitely taught me a lot about the world. And I'll just leave it at that for now. And at the time, I think the title of my first job's role, business analyst, was what it was because product manager existed, but it wasn't very in vogue. And it certainly was specific to the software world at the time. So business analyst was the appropriate title for what I was doing. And it all made sense. So now let's fast forward a little bit. I think we all maybe have noticed this, but probably haven't really thought much about it potentially, which is as more and more companies started to realize how much value there was in having software tools at their disposal to help with their operations, what larger organizations in particular started to do was we'll call it in-house their software development, hire their own engineers, not just outsource it, but hire their own engineers and their own people surrounding that engineering function, QA, okay, people to do the requirements, project managers, right? Basically, they stood up their own software development shop. And the reason for this, it all made sense. When you're at scale, I get it, right? They also, they had like a, I want to do this myself attitude. I don't want to outsource it. I don't want to rely on a third party company. I want to do it. I want to own the employees. I want them to work for me, which makes sense. And there's also economies of scale at this point that if you can afford or you have enough work for a full team, it's going to be cheaper, right? Just hire the people yourself and don't pay the premium of outsourcing it to someone else. So that made sense. It also gives you more control. And whether this is true or not, I think the perspective of a lot of these companies at the time was that it was a competitive advantage for them. If I can do it, I have the control and I'm doing it myself, that'll make me better than my competitors, regardless of the industry you were in. That I think was the feeling. Now, whether that's true or not, we could debate that, and that's not the point. But if everyone's doing it, then it's not a competitive advantage, really, right? Anyhow, but what happened there was those companies that were not software companies, these could be product companies, this could be services companies, anybody, you name the company that isn't a software company, they all started doing this on some levels they basically stole the product manager title, in my opinion. They started using it, and business analyst died. That title started going away. And my feeling is the reason for that is that it wasn't very sexy. Business analyst didn't sound as interesting as product manager. And they started using product manager, which historically, at this point, when this started happening, was really kind of implied software company. I work for a software or a hardware, let's just say technology company to be a little bit more general, but you were in tech. Hardware tech could be software. Yes, that was the historic use of the title. Okay, so now why is this a problem? Why, what's the big deal? Well, I think this diagram, okay, on the right starts to highlight why, okay, this is a problem that we landed up in a situation where product manager was being used against a bunch of different in this circle. This circle is two extreme examples, and I just labeled these myself. I'm calling one an internal product manager and the other let's say a SaaS product manager. And if you look at the things along the outside, you start to realize just how different the responsibilities when you're actually doing SaaS product management, meaning I sell software for a living, like that's what the company does. We sell software, is different from if you are just working for a non-tech company on internal tools, right? The responsibilities look quite different. And now we got role differentiation all under the same title. So this is another way of looking at the same thing in a way, and it even expands this out to three different product roles that I have seen that exist. And truthfully, I think it's more. I'll be honest, and I didn't want to like get crazy and go into more than this. I'm doing this to just highlight the problem. And I think the problem is bigger than I even am pointing out here, that there are, to me, three potentially very distinct roles that exist today. And what I'm adding here is this middle one, the customer facing product manager. And what I mean by that role is imagine someone that works on a product that is customer facing, but isn't being sold. So what I mean, for example, like, oh, I work for a bank and I work on their portal that all the customers use to log into and check their balances, make transfers, make payments, right? The thing we all use all the time, just as an example. Or I just work on the company's website, right? Their corporate property website, okay, needs a product manager. And it could even be that. But I think the bank example is a better one because you have customers you're worried about and you want to meet their needs. So you're a part of product management where you're balancing the needs of many customers. What you're not really worried about is having to sell that, right? You don't sell your banking portal as a bank. It's part of the service that they offer, and they're basically, quote unquote, giving it away for free. So that's another type of product role where you're doing a little bit more than what the internal PM does, right? But you're not doing everything that what I call like a full stack SaaS product manager has to worry about because you're not selling that software. Okay, so still, what do we need to repair? The answer just comes down to, I think this is causing primarily some job seeking problems. Okay, I think that what we're going to see is that we're slowing down the job hunt, for lack of a better word, and making it more challenging for both sides of the equation here. So now let's talk a little bit about, okay, now the problem exists. Let's talk about the solution. And before, just I know same exact thing I already showed, but now let's talk a little bit solution. But let me just point out that part of the problem, I think specifically, comes down to the fact that imagine you're a job seeker, you see a product manager role. How do you know what that means? How do you really know just by the title a for tools versus that hybrid I spoke about versus it's for full SaaS. Now, sure, there's a little bit of inference you might be able to make based on the type of the company it is. Yes, that's true. But still, when you're like pouring through all these job postings, right, it would be nice if that was just obvious by the title, don't you think? So as a job seeker, you see product manager, and we no longer know what the full scope of that role might entail. Now, on the hiring side, I think it's causing problems as well by posting a title of product manager. What I think you're going to end up getting, okay, especially let's go to the extreme. If you are a SaaS company and you say product manager, and now we've got candidates that only have experience with internal tools applying for that role. So as a hiring manager, you might end up getting people that don't have the full set of skills you're hoping to get because all the person did is saw a product manager title. They didn't look at the details because a lot of people do that. And it's so easy to just hit the apply button that you're going to be flooded with potentially candidates that you're not really interested in because they don't have all that stuff you're hoping to get on the selling software side, the product marketing, working with sales, win-loss analysis, all that stuff they're not going to be used to. And now you're spending time looking through potentially, candidates that just don't have what you're looking for. So what do I think could be a potential solution is simple one from a solution standpoint, just off the bat is let's retitle these roles. Okay. Let's at least be more specific about maybe we just put a few words in front of the title, whatever it is. And I'm not here to tell you what the title should be. I don't really care. That's not the point. The point is that I just think they deserve different titles because they have vastly different scopes of responsibility. And we want to find, as a hiring person, right, the right candidate. And as a job seeker, you want to know, am I applying to a job I'm interested in? Because as an internal tools, let's say product manager, you might want to stay there because you love that, right? Not everyone wants to be working in a SaaS company where you're responsible for all that extra stuff that may be of no interest to you, but you got to now pour through the job title to go figure that out. Is this right for me? So simply I'm saying, let's just have different titles for these clearly different jobs. Now, a little bit of like how could this even possibly start to happen? Who can help drive this? My first thought was, I think some of our well-known industry associations, product management associations, might be able to start a movement, right? Because they have some influence in this field over a lot of product people. The associations that some of us are probably very familiar with, like Pragmatic, Product School, Mind the Product, the Product Group, the people or organizations or even individuals with influence. I would love to see start to at least just start talking about this and recognize the problem it has in our hiring and start to have them maybe start making even recommendations. Because if it comes from one of these associations that have some, authority behind them, that could start motivating a real potential change. I also think that the companies, hiring companies themselves, okay, should start to take it on themselves to get smarter about their job postings, post for the job they're actually hiring for with the specifics right in mind so they get the candidates they're looking for. Like it's self-interest, in my opinion, for them to do so. And I also even think individuals, job seekers, when we're looking, right, and we're on the hunt, we do have a little bit, not a lot as individuals, but at the minimum, we should start talking about this, right? Everywhere we go, right? And anytime, especially if we're job hunting, about the frustration that gets involved in this, certainly. And maybe even start talking about this internally at your own company, especially if you're hiring, and ask the question, are we titling these roles responsibly? And just start the conversation, because those conversations can lead to
Where's your sister?
Sorry, can everyone make sure you're on mute? Thank you. And that can start the conversation. And even maybe as you're doing your job hunt and you're interviewing with companies, I know this would be a little challenging, maybe even gutsy, but nudge them a little bit. Maybe make a suggestion, okay, about how the title wasn't necessarily indicative of the responsibilities that you thought it would be. So we're just again starting the conversation. All these things, when they're really early and this isn't yet a thing, start with people talking about it. And if it's talked about enough, that could instill some change. Now, I do think there will be barriers, of course. I don't think this is going to be easier. And truthfully, I think the real barriers will be coming from the fact that I don't see a ton of motivation potentially from the non-tech companies. Some of them that are smart will realize the problem, say we're not getting the right resumes, and maybe want to be motivated. But one of the things I think, and this is sort of a guess, I will admit, and it's an assumption, that the reason these non-tech companies adopted the product manager title for their internal roles was that they were hoping to attract former product managers into their company. That's what they actually were fine getting, okay, because especially originally back in the day, they were mostly the people that had the skills, right? They were the ones that actually could do the job of the internal product manager they were really posting for. And that motivation still exists. That I don't think they have a problem if the person's willing to come work for them, coming in and doing the job because they've got the skills. Okay. It's a superset issue, right? A SaaS product manager, in my opinion, okay, has the skills to work on internal tools, okay, already. Now, I think a lot of us that have had those roles might not want that role because it's a smaller skill set, but some of us might. Don't get me wrong. I have no problem with those that want to transition into a more finite set of responsibilities. I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. Not at all. I get why that could be a more comfortable role when you don't have to deal with actual customers that you're selling to. Because as most of us know that do that, customers are a pain, right? They're the ones that make our job really, really hard. Okay. The fact that we've got 100+ customers and they don't always want the same thing, right? That alone can keep us up at night. So I get why you might want to make that transition. And I am not judging that at all. But these non-tech companies, I believe, are, happy to have these resumes coming in some ways. But I think my intuition says the rate at which they're going to get former product managers to come into these roles, meaning SaaS product managers, I apologize, is probably low percentage, much lower percentage than those that are already doing that particular job, because those are the people that probably are in it, like it, okay, and want to continue doing it. And there's no trickery here, right? There's no misleading. It's right. It's that they are. I just think that, yeah, that's the biggest barrier to this will be resistance from these. And that's where we need it. It's the non-tech companies, in my opinion, that are the ones that need to really take on the retitling on their own and call it something different than just product manager, right? It could, like I said, it could even be, I know it's a little long, but internal tools product manager would be fine by me, right? Just so we know and understand that. So just a quick way recap. I covered a little bit of this already. Why? Like, why does any of this matter? Why should we care? Do we really need to care? Just very quickly, right? It's so job seekers understand the actual responsibilities of a job just based on the title really, really fast, and they know whether they should click apply or not. Reduce for the hiring companies bad applicants. This will result in faster recruiting, right? And also, one thing I sort of didn't mention yet is I think this will also just lead to better job and skills alignment. Because as we all know, the hiring process is fast and dirty and too often leads to you bringing someone on board that, because the hiring process is so lean and you only spend so much time with these people, is actually not the right fit, right? They're just not the right person. And some of you may have already noticed this that have done hiring. Certainly know this. Product management, in my opinion, is one of the harder roles to fill, okay, in your company. Very hard to fill. And it's hard enough. Let's not make it any harder than it already is. Because it's already hard in not finding the right person. Just some quick good news. And for those of you, because I don't want to mislead people into thinking that, oh, if you are currently working, okay, on internal tools and that you cannot break out into product management. I hope that I'm not making that point because look, I did it, right? That was my whole origin story is I absolutely did it. Now I did it at a time where I think it was a little easier, much easier, I'll be honest, because when I did it, the demand for software product managers was pretty darn high. And I will admit, they had no choice but to take a risk on me when I did not have all the skills that they were looking for. Okay. So they just said, yep, good enough on me. You've got enough of those requirements skills. You've done that. You get prioritization. You manage backlogs. No
Well,
problem. We can train you to do the rest, and we'll take that on as a hiring organization. And luckily, I had good leadership, good mentorship, and they taught me all the parts that I hadn't done yet. But this is absolutely still possible. It absolutely is. And I know right now you're probably all saying, my God, like, is it given how tight the market is? My point is that it's all learnable, right? We all got here somewhere. We weren't born product managers, were we? No, we all started, okay, somewhere and probably in a role that was less than a full stack, okay, super successful product person. Okay, we all learned it somehow, and its transition is absolutely doable. You just got to find companies that are sort of willing to take on a little bit of, the training involved in that. And those are questions you could certainly ask, when you're interviewing um, about, hey, do you guys, offer mentorship? Because I recognize, oh yeah, I've never done win-loss analysis. I couldn't even tell you what that is, right? And I get that. If you're working on internal tools, you probably have no idea what that means, nor should you. But I will honestly admit, it's learnable. You are all probably, okay, capable of learning it if you want to and are willing to, be mentored and take on education on the job. So I always like to end, with some takeaways, right? What is the point? You just downloaded me with an insane amount of information. I'm never going to remember it all. So here are the highlights. Here are the bullets. Okay, of what you should take away. The product manager title, okay, refers to a lot of different roles, right? I think I've beaten that into you. I think that's become very clear. Hiring process now, as a result of that, is confusing. Let's just leave it at that. Better role definition would really help solve a lot of this. Right in the title, change the title, have different titles for different roles, okay? Because that way we know very quickly, okay, is this the right role for me? And in both directions, right? If you're in internal tools and you know that it's a SaaS product manager role, you can make an educated decision whether you want to go for that, and vice versa. That if you're looking for a SaaS product manager, okay, or you are a SaaS product manager, sorry, and you're looking at a posting for an internal tools product manager, you can say, wait, I don't want to take that step, okay, into a different role. I want to stay where I'm in SaaS. That kind of responsibility, you can. And finally, just going to say it again, this transition, if you are an internal tools product manager, is very possible. Okay, that's it. Thank you all very much for taking the time to join and listen in. I am absolutely happy to now take any questions you all might have for me. I see Steve has his hand raised, so we can start there. Steve, good to see your face. What's your question?
Likewise, Jordan. Here's my question for you. I mean, I've seen quite a bit of companies that are adamant if I don't have all, you don't have all the skills they want to see, they're not even going to talk to you about it. When there should be some room for training and so on. And I agree that most of this stuff is learnable. And to that point, would you say what does learnable mean that most people can learn it and none of this is actually rocket science? Or does this really get to be esoteric that you really need to put some focused study into it?
It's a great question. And I'm going to give you a very consultant answer, which is right. It depends on the person I will say this much. I do feel not everyone is born to be a SaaS product manager. For a number of reasons, you might not be interested in it, even though you think you are, number one, right? Some people think it's sexier than it is. So they go into it not realizing that there are parts of the job that absolutely stink at times, right? And if you feel that way about it, you're not going to be good at it, right? It's also a role that requires a lot of potentially very different skills, from the tactical to the creative, right? And those are two different things. Again, not easy to do both. But back to your question, which is, can you make this transition and can you learn it on the job? I think the answer is yes, if you want it. Okay, yes, but don't feel bad if you realize, oh, there are a lot of parts to this I actually am never going to be an A player doing, right? And that's okay. Do not think that everybody product manager do not feel bad if you don't. I have plenty of people not succeed in this role, and it is nothing to be ashamed at and say, I'm going to go do something else. Like I'm going to stick to the internal tools role. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a hard enough job, okay, for most people to say, good enough, challenging enough. I am loving this and I sleep at night because of it. And trying to be a full SaaS product manager was keeping me up at night because it's just insane. But I believe that there are plenty of resources out there to help you make the transition. Number one, from classes also that I didn't mention, there are plenty of classes on this that you could take. We all know that. And they're all very, very mature at this point too. That's not necessary, and you don't have to go that route either. You can learn this on the job if you want it. If you want it. Is that
It certainly tells me exactly what your thoughts are, and I get your point. So thank you for that. I was bringing this up for discussion. That answers a lot. I agree with you.
Great. Thank you. Oleg, I see you have your hand raised.
Yep. Thanks for bringing up. It was easier. Like this resonated with me because market is basically full of people who are quite qualified. And from my point of view, what I see, I have a branch of experience, but I lack SaaS experience in my CV. And you can't learn it by a course, right? You need to experience it somehow, by chance, by growing in the company to side business, or whatever. So how do you see it in terms of product manager? Just like learning from course is not enough, right? You need to experience, but you cannot get a job for it because you don't have experience, and you have this loop.
Yeah. Yep. And especially right now, this is as true as it's been in a long time. We all know the job market right now is incredibly competitive. And what that means is if you are a SaaS company, you have your pick of the litter at the moment, and you're right. It's going to be very hard to convince a software technology company to hire you if you haven't had the experience yet. I hear you. I'm not saying you're wrong when I do say the transition is possible, right? And I know those two things now sound like, well, you're talking out of both sides of your mouth. However, to your point, I don't think it hurts to take the class, right? Especially right now, because it will give you a language, it will give you frameworks, it will give you some understanding of, okay, what will I be having to do, especially all that different stuff, that new stuff, the market facing stuff, the software for a market, the selling software part. They will at least give you a knowledge base of like a language, okay? And a knowledge of it does not hurt. I did it. I took it. I took pragmatic marketing after I'd been a product manager for about 5 years, right? Why? Because I figured, well, in part, I will admit it was no cost to me. That was number one. Okay. So that's part of it. I will be honest. But I said to myself, it never hurts to have a like academic refresher, right? I'd been doing the job for a while. I was a manager at the time. I'd been doing it forever, and I still took the course. So that tells you a little bit of how I feel about the value of it. That I did it well after I was doing the job. Now, how? So here's some like tips I tell everyone, regardless of the market, because a lot of people ask me about how do I transition into product management. One thing you could try to do, and it's not always easy because it depends on, what industries you know. You can sometimes use industry expertise as a leverage point to get into product management because what they might say to themselves is, oh, the industry expertise, if it's sort of a little niche. If there aren't a lot of people that know this industry, they will take you on because you know the industry, and that's going to speed you up. And a lot of companies and product organizations will think to themselves, I would rather teach you how to be a product manager than have to teach you the industry. Now, some feel the opposite, but plenty of companies will say, I am happy because I am a product manager. Whoever's hiring, I can teach you to be a product manager. Not a problem. I will do that. I don't want to have to teach you the industry because it takes too long. Because there's so much about this industry that is challenging. So you can leverage that. Try to go that route of, oh, I know your space. I've been in your domain for a long time. Now, the other way and a little bit harder is absolutely, be willing to take on a role that is a little bit, maybe has some grunt work to it, that maybe is lateral or even a step back. Sometimes is necessary. So a lot of us are familiar with the product owner role that is being used in the software industry. Now, I get that, you talk to 5 different people and they will semi-define that role differently, but a lot of companies are using that role to take on a lot that is often analogous to an internal tools PM in many ways. Okay, so you might want to look at that role and get into the door through the PO role, and then try to work your way up to product manager in that same company. And the larger the company, I found, the more likely they are to have both PO and PMs in that company, because it only, in my opinion, makes sense at scale to have both roles. Doesn't really make sense if you are, a smaller organization to try to have both just out of like your headcount issue, right? Like you're going to ask the product manager to actually do all of that. They're going to go and the PM. Does that make sense? Any other follow-up questions?
Yeah, if I could ask you a quick question on that one for conversation. I mean, since I've moved out of Maryland, since you met me last, I've actually worked on some very large-scale federal contracting projects for the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, which had a lot of POs in them. And the good POs are very adept at multi-level, multi-directional diplomacy and really strong stakeholder management because you have lots of stakeholders and team members and all sorts of people to work with. And this probably gets to be bigger than some commercial companies. It can be huge. But that's one thing which makes a difference there, which sets a good one PO apart from a bad one.
That's a fair point. I appreciate that point. And we all can appreciate there are, especially in this kind of discipline, it's very easy to notice those that are bad. They fail pretty quickly. Product management, product ownership, you're not good at it. It can be, hopefully it's obvious quickly unless they're incredible fakers, right? But it's very hard to fake this job, in my opinion. Just too much goes into it. Just looking quickly at the chat to see if there are any questions there. I see Steven. Oh, I think there is a question here. There is one. Okay, from Karen. If companies do not hire the right skilled people, how can candidates power targeted results? Yeah, I mean, that's a good question without a great answer other than I think to some extent I might have touched on, right. That's all part of this problem is if you're not going to be honest about what you're looking for as a hiring organization, don't expect to get candidates that are a good fit for your role. So if there are any hiring managers out there, don't, over fluff what the role is going to be. Don't oversell it. Okay, I know there's so much motivation to do so. When I first was a hiring manager, I absolutely admit I did it. I made these jobs, product manager jobs, sound like you'd be curing cancer. Okay, and I quickly learned, right, nope, because I was getting candidates that just weren't right. They were often overqualified. Like I was overselling their responsibility. I was getting people that had lots of experience and sounded great, and I was in love with them, but they weren't in love with the role. Once I actually they started asking smart questions, I gave them honest answers in the interview, and I never heard from them again. Right? Like I absolutely made that mistake. So yes, companies need to be honest, and this isn't even specific to product management at all. This is hiring in general, right? Don't over fluff it. Be straight up about what you expect this person will be doing for the most part. Okay, be honest. It serves everybody. Get the people that are actually that are right for the role and will be interested in your role. Don't waste your own time. It is silly to bring in overqualified candidates because 90% of the time, if not more, they will feel they wasted their time. They will not follow up. You've wasted your time. Oh, yes, just so you know, someone asked, well, the recording, I don't know if the recording will be shared. Sorry, but I know the deck will.
The
Gene
answer is
plans on
yes.
sharing the
The
deck.
answer yes. Yeah.
Ah, okay, thanks, Gene.
If we don't bastardize it, so
Yeah. Fair enough.
sure.
Fair enough. Okay, I think those are the questions I see in the chat. Are there any other questions? We do have time, so if there are any other, don't be shy. Don't be shy. There are no stupid. So I'm happy to use the time to answer any other questions that might be out there. You can also ask it in the chat if you're a little shy and you don't want to be on camera, as they say. It's fine. You can put it in the chat. Is also okay.
If nobody else will ask you a question, I will ask you a question, Jordan.
Okay.
When I was in business school, actually the capstone course in my program was a product management course at the time. It was openly said that product management could be equally applied to services as well as actual physical tangible products that you can buy and sell and you have it to hold on to and so on. What would you say is the percentage split between product management for services as compared to tangible hands-on, I get to hold it products?
Well, you're not differentiating between software and hardware. You mean an actual services company like a consulting type business?
I mean, yeah, like we can design a consulting program, the communications program for a company. If you want to set up a real customer service to really differentiate your company as a competitive advantage, you could treat that as a product itself, as compared to like the widgets that you sell.
Okay, so wait, let me just clarify. An example of a services business is a straight up consulting firm, or are you talking more about a software company that also wants to, well, other way around, I'm sorry. Or are you talking about the services business that happens to have a lot of software in their world and they want to start getting into the software business? What are you really getting at here?
What I'm getting at is Marriott hotels to really define their customer service program. Every touch point that a customer, a person who stays there has, as it relates into the company, to the marketing, the branding, how they want to be known. And you can lay out this perfect, ideal customer service program for the ultimate retention of the people who stay at your hotel. It's the service plan. That's what I mean. Your service that you're offering, not just the service follow-up after you buy a product.
Right. Okay. So I have not run into a ton of people that do that kind of product management. However, I would say that does sound like a form of product management because they're working on the actual sellable product that company, right, is working on. And that involves, a lot of the things us product people do. So, the split you asked about, I'm not even going to try to answer that because the honest answer is I do not know. I do not know how common that has become, but it wouldn't surprise me if they exist. And I don't know, right, they might be using the product manager title, but often I think historically what you're describing is probably live within the marketing function within most organizations would be my feeling is those things you're talking about probably are somewhere in the marketing function, living maybe under another title, right? But being done. Now, having product managers in that kind of company doesn't strike me as being a bad thing. I wouldn't object to that as long as, again, I think, though, there would be some, difference in just again, let's find the right title for it because if you are a SaaS product manager and you see Marriott, right, advertising that role, two things. One, I would love to know, like, hey, do you mean that like you're working on software, your internal tools, or do you mean working on your actual product and helping sell your actual product? Same title can mean that thing too, and it just exacerbates the problem even more than we have today because as we know, a SaaS product manager might want to stay on software, get confused, and apply to that job, and it's going to be quite different because there's no software component to it. You're not working with engineers. You're working with a totally different delivery mechanism that is completely different than delivering software, delivering hotel rooms and customer service around hotel rooms. I think we all can appreciate really, really different than delivering software.
You could just be a customer experience manager, but you have more than answered the question. I didn't expect you to get this far into it.
That's okay. I had time, and it doesn't seem like there are other questions, though now there are. Okay. 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 Some of those are which courses I was referring to. So right now, I'll admit, not an expert on these classes anymore because I haven't taken one in a while, but product school and pragmatic, I think at the moment are probably the two largest. Oh, and General Assembly is still out there as well. Are three that I could think of off the top of my head that are probably the most well known. Now, I'm not going to say whether they're the best or not. I couldn't speak to that, but it's a good starting point if you want to try to get a feel for what these courses look like, and what, they might very well post at least general syllabuses. I would check those three for sure. They are, especially the product schools, really, really grown enormously over the past couple of years. They become a beast now in our space. I remember going to some of their talks 5, 6 years ago. They were a completely different organization back then than they are now. Now they are, huge. Their CEO is now incredibly well known. He does talks all over the world. He is very Guillermo, I think is his name. I think, yeah. So check out those three. Now there's another one from Margot. Just reading it. Okay. Oh, she's talking about like roadmaps for customer service. Okay, but it's more service project based and one product and more program and project managers. Okay, well, yeah, what you're just bringing up here, and I've done talks specifically on this. If you are calling your project managers product managers, I will lose my mind. Okay. Yeah, like 8 years ago, I did a talk on how project and product management are very different and should not be done by the same person, even though companies today are still doing it. Okay, if it's out of necessity because you're small, I'll let you get away with it. Okay, once you get to scale and you are of a certain size, you should not be asking your product managers to also do project management. So just sorry, done with that rant. But this is interesting what you're talking about.
Do you think?
What's that, Steve?
Because there's an internal conflict?
No. It's not so much that. They are completely different skill sets.
Yeah.
Completely different skills. Okay. They are not, it's like, in my talk, I specifically say this. It's like saying to someone, I'm going to hire one person to handle both my HR and sales. Right? Why the heck would you would never do that in 100 years, right? Why? They are completely different skills and experiences. Project management and product management are actually that different. People just don't think enough to realize that they require different innate skills to do them both at an A level, and very, very few people do them both at an A level. Finding that person, needle in a haystack. And oh, by the way, those people, they do exist. I've met them, but they have gone on to do way bigger things than just product management. They are CEOs of companies. Okay, they are now the CPO. They are not doing product manager roles for very long. They are the unicorns. They are arguably really talented and are not going to stay as just regular product managers long, in my opinion. They are doing other things. So they just don't last if they're that good. So hire to the skill, hire to the experience. Don't ask your product manager to handle it. The odds are, okay, they won't be very good at it if they're truly product managers, or vice versa. They're truly a project manager. They probably won't be very good at product management, is my opinion. It's not even my opinion. That's been my experience. That's absolutely been my experience. No doubt. I'm just looking at, oh, Gene just put a comment in, got it. What are these different innate skills? Okay, well, not too crazy about projects. It's an operational, right, tactical. Like you need to be like a bull, okay, and also be incredibly detail oriented. You need to know everything that's going on in that, especially with software, right? We all know all of us are in software delivery. Understand, okay, how unbelievably hard it is to deliver on time. We know this. That's what the project managers, okay, like deal with all the time, right? It's the classic project management triangle of managing, like understanding the scope, the time, and the resources available, and managing to that all the time. And also then on a daily basis, right? That's more planning, okay? And then on a daily basis, okay, just knowing, basically playing the role of Scrum Master, right? I believe those have similar overlaps, doing that part of the role, knowing exactly what's going on, and every day clearing barriers, clearing blockers, getting them out of the way before they even are problems. That's a skill set of like just being very, very focused and tactical, while product management involves all sorts of other skills like customer relationship management. You need to be really, really good with people and customers and understand that dynamic of like how to treat a customer when you're on a phone call with them, right? Little things like that. And by the way, you'd be shocked at how many people are terrible at reading the room enough to be good at that. Okay, that like one thing, okay, is hard enough. And also like the whole creativity part, okay, a product about like synthesizing information you get and not just like directly listening to, right, what's being asked of you by your customers, but synthesizing that, like, yes, into a solution, okay, for the technology, but taking a step back and being creative about what are they actually talking about? What are they, right? What are they saying to me? What's the problem? And then being creative about what does that actually mean in terms of like, where's the industry headed, right? Understanding, okay, your customers' words and translating that into roadmap items takes a certain level of creativity when you're doing it at an A level. And I will even admit that's one of the hardest things for me. I admit that is actually reading between the lines. I love to just like too easily hear the problem, analyze the problem, dig into understanding exactly the problem they're giving me, and then go solve that like specific problem. Okay, I admit, like I fall too easily and not really trying to determine, have other people said something similar? Have I heard this before? Right? Is this a common theme? Does this fall into a theme? And then try to like remember, okay, market direction, building software for a whole market. What does that mean? How do we create roadmap items that are based on serving a market? And I know better than I'll never build something for one customer. That is like, I'm well beyond that. But is something in between those two things, okay, that exists about, right? Oh, I would never build for one customer, but when I hear like it 2-3 times, is that enough of a signal? And what does that mean in terms of roadmap items?
One thing, if I could just jump in there quick, and I know Oleg's got his hand up here. You hinted at the internal conflict I was getting at, where if you have the iron triangle and you're working by the project manager, and you're used to always thinking about those factors and how can we fit this into the time, that would not enable you to really think out a creative vision for the product, put creative thought into it, where you just got to think it out, maybe get to a vision that you like, then you could pull it back to make it fit the time, rather than trying to limit your thinking in the first place to fit the time without thinking it out. That's like the conflict I was getting at.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Hey, guys, quick time check. 2 minutes left. Jordan, you may want to take one more question or comment. There was Oleg with the hand, and we're gonna have to wrap this up after.
Yeah. Thanks.
Let's
quick question in terms of technical capability of product manager, right? If you're doing SaaS product, maybe you're doing more technical product. What should be reasonable technical background to be successful?
Sorry, can you re-ask that? I didn't catch that.
Yeah, what should be technical background of product manager in order to be successful?
Look, being technical does not hurt a product manager that's working in the SaaS or physical. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt. However, it is not required to be successful. I was never a software engineer a day in my life. I did not come up through that route. But I will admit, I came up through the IT world. Funny enough, before I did anything related to product management, that BA role I spoke to, I was an IT guy. Okay, which still to this day helps a little bit, helps a little, but only a little bit. But the point is, no, you do not have to be technical, because if you're actually doing true product management, okay, what you're really doing is you're analyzing the heck out of problems, digging into them, you're interviewing customers, you are, thinking about like business problems, right? You're a business guy. You're a business analyst in many ways, to use that term loosely, not as a title, but you are analyzing and interviewing all that stuff. Okay. That does not require you being an engineer at all. Okay. Now, and I'll tell you that now I am much more technical than I was when I first started from years of working with engineers. I absolutely made sure I learned a lot about what they do, what their challenges are. Okay, so I can now, I'm sympathetic to them and their challenges, number one, and number two, I'm now actually fairly good for most of the time being able to somewhat roughly estimate a lot of things that get asked for pretty quickly, which is super helpful now. So I know like really quickly if things make sense, right? ROI off the top of my head. I hear a problem. I see how bad the problem is. I can sort of guess within 20% probably accuracy how big it's going to be and quickly say, this makes no sense. I am not pursuing it. It's going to be way too expensive. The ROI makes no sense. And it dies on the vine with me. And I don't even talk about it anymore. So that I think as a product person can be very helpful. But I developed that having never been a professional product manager, professional developer a day in my life. So the answer is you don't need to be very technical.
Thank you very much, Jordan. On this note, and I was selfishly typing something in the chat as well, because it really resonated what you shared today. So much consistency and alignment with the definition of the role of a truly empowered, strategically influential product owner on a large-scale Scrum. I really need to wrap this up now at this hour. So I want to really thank you personally for joining this call and this session and sharing your insight and your knowledge. It's very appreciated.
Very
For
welcome.
everyone who joined, thank you very much for attending, and I would like to share the materials that we'll be getting from Jordan, as well as the recording that I hopefully will be getting from Zoom soon with everyone. So if you want to replay it, rehash it, also helps a lot with interviewing if you're planning to if you plan your interviews anytime in the future. This is actually very useful content. So thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the weekday and happy weekend.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very
Great
much.
weekend.
Thank you, Jordan, once again for doing this great talk. Cheers.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.